All right, folks, thanks for joining in today. Hopefully you can hear everything well. Today, we are going to be working with the routers. So, how's the audio, guys? I know it's noisy in the shop, but can you guys hear me? If you can, just drop something in the chat. Let me know, okay? If I have to move to a quiet space or ask people to shut things down, I'll do that. So, check this out. You guys can hear me? Things are okay? A little muffled, but yes for the most part? Okay, cool. That's not bad at all. We'll work with that. So today, guys, we're going to be working with the router. I talked to you guys about the step the other day, and we are going to move on to it. So we got two different routers in the class. We got a table router, which is this thing behind me, and we have a handheld router, which is going to look like this. It's got two handles. It's a two-handed operation. You never want to use these one-handed. It's a recipe for a disaster. But what this does is this will, depending on the bit you put in the router, you can cut a variety of shapes on the edges of wood. Let's think of something like a picture frame or a baseboard trim that is in your household. Those are pretty much cut with a large router. What we're going to use it for today is to cut rounded edges. So we're going to look at this material here. You can see up top and right here, it's got a rounded edge. That is because I have routed these. So we've run these across this router here and cleaned up the edges. We're going to do a few pieces today. We're going to talk about how this works, how to be successful while using it, and how to keep our fingers and parts attached to our body. So firstly, these things are a dangerous tool. These are probably the tool in the shop that I am least confident in. Now, I've got lots of confidence in it. I've used them a bunch. I know how to operate them safely, but if someone's gonna get hurt in here, it's probably gonna be this tool. Really hoping we don't have an issue. We have had issues in the past. We did have a student stick his hand into one, and fortunately, it wasn't me who was teaching him, but it's very unfortunate for the student that it did happen. This happened a couple of years ago, and the student did a bunch of damage to his pinky area, and it was not a pretty sight. It's something he's going to have for the rest of his life. He's going to know and think about that all the time. So my goal is to avoid anything like that in this shop today. What we're going to do is we're going to go over how this guy works behind me, and I'm going to bring the camera slightly forward so you guys can see a little better. And we are going to get into that. So the thing I'll have you know about this table router is it's a normal router. It's just upside down. In fact, let's take a peek underneath the table. See if I can get you under here. So if you guys can see that, that is a normal router just like we have, except this one's mounted upside down to a table. So not a whole lot of difference there. Basically, we just added a table, added a little fence, and this is what keeps our wood nice and square, and it keeps our hands out of that guy because we don't want to put them right in there. So that's a 3 blade cutting bit, and it's got a profile to make a 1/4 inch round cut. And it spins at approximately 25,000 RPM. 24,500 is the exact number. So I know this because when we're looking at these tools, we check the top of this, right there, 24,500 RPM. So it spins pretty darn fast, like real fast. They're kind of a noisy tool. Due to the speed, they do whine a little bit. It does make some noise, but that's why we wear earplugs. So, PPE for this tool. Safety glasses, 100%. Rings, get them out of there. I took my wrist strap off, my sleeves are up. Watch is on and tight, so we'll leave that in place. Like I said, though, if you got that rolly, you might wanna put that away. This fence here is replaceable, sacrificial. It gets worn out and we fix it. The goal is to keep it as nice as possible, though. What we have here is one side of the guide, and we have our bit in the middle. We want to keep this as intact as possible. Now, I mean, it can be fixed, can be repaired, but I want to keep this good. So cool thing about this fence is it's all removable. We'll remove that in a bit and we'll kind of show you how that works. But for our class purposes, you guys will never remove this and you'll never operate this without the fence on it. That's something that I'll do, and I'll do it as a demonstration, but you guys will never do that. Big thing about setting this up is we want it to cut just the edge of our wood, and that is it. And there is a little device on these router bits. It's right in there. I'm not going to get in too close because this is plugged in. I will show you a bit though. I'm going to grab another bit and we'll kind of show you how we stop from cutting just right through our wood with these router bits. So what I have here is a box of router bits. They come in different sizes, shapes, but one thing they're all going to have in common, not all of them, but most of them, are going to have this guy right here on the top. This is a bearing. What it does is, as this cuts in, this will touch the edge of your wood, and it won't allow this bit to cut any deeper. So your wood's going to stop right there, and this will trim a nice square edge on your wood. For today's class, what we're doing is we're cutting a 1/4 inch round edge on our wood. So the bearing is actually going to be slightly smaller than the outside of the drill bit. That's because we want to get that nice tapered profile on there. These come in a variety of sizes. So as you can see, a little bit bigger. Actually, a heck of a lot bigger. So this we would use for making cabinet doors, things like that. It's going to give us a nice shape on the outside and cut the groove for the panel material on the inside. So a really nice little piece. We don't use these in the 10 level because this is pretty much a spinning wheel of death. You guys ever seen Robot Wars back in the day? Where they battle robots inside of an arena? They got lots of spinners and cutters. Kind of reminds me of one of those. So we're going to put that away. Main thing with this is keeping our hands away from this little spinning blade of death right here. And a good reference is this red zone. See that red collar right here? Don't put your hands in there. It's pretty simple. If we keep them out of there, we should be pretty fine. I always say keep your hands a couple inches away from the blade at least. And we use tools to help ourselves with that. So if we are sliding a large piece of wood across here, we can use this guy. So this, kind of like what's on the table saw the other day that I put down, it's called a fingerboard. All these little fingers, they help keep our wood tight against the backstop, the fence, and it keeps our fingers out of the way. If we cut these up, I really don't care. Doesn't matter. They're easy to make. Fingers, whole different story. So that's going to slide in this groove on the table. And as we push our piece through, we're going to slide this hand along, slide the whole thing. That's going to keep things nice and tight to the back fence, because that's what we need to have to get a nice consistent cut on this tool. Also, we have things like our push sticks. We got various types here. I always keep those around. And something like this. That's a miter gauge. How this works is it sits in the groove, and I have a 90-degree edge here. So this, if I have a bigger piece, say like a backrest A or a back support A, I could set this on here, use this to push that across that bit. Since this is too long though, it's gonna make it difficult. So we might say have this off the side, start this here, get it to a point that we can get this in place, drop it in, finish up the cut like that. And that will get you across here without too many issues. The thing we gotta know about this is when you're standing in front of this machine, kind of like I am right now with my back to you, this is gonna rotate counterclockwise. And you can tell that by the way the knives are pointed. They're gonna spin counterclockwise. So they're gonna create a force that pushes back this way when you are trying to push material in. So it's gonna push against you. That is what you want. You want it to push against you. That's how it's gonna cut the best. If we try and push our material into the back, what could happen is one of those cutting edges could grab our material, rocket it out of our hands into the back of somebody working at the bandsaw right there. That's not what we want. We want a nice controlled cut. So for this, what I often do, I always do, is always work from the right side of the table to the left side. So starting here with my piece, like that, and I keep my fingers 2 inches away. I work across right to the left side. And that's how we get a nice clean cut. Now, if you're cutting both sides of something, say like one of these supports of A, one cut isn't gonna be as smooth as the other cut. That's because one cut's gonna be with the grain, one cut's gonna go against the grain. And you'll be able to find out which is which in a second. All you have to do is touch it. This here, against the grain. With the grain, this one here is against the grain. So it all depends on how you flip it, rotate it. One good one not so good one good one, and one not so good one. I say not so good, all it is a little more rough. So we just gotta grab some sandpaper, sand it up real quick, and that'll take care of that. With this, it makes a lot of sawdust and wood chips. So there is a outlet on the back of it that we plug a vacuum into. We got these shop vacs. Keep this one in the corner here. This will just plug right into the back of this, and that will help collect our sawdust. So we're not, creating sawdust everywhere, having a great big mess happen. So I got that plugged in. To turn this guy on, we have made this a little more simple for you. Instead of reaching under and turning on the on switch on the router itself, we've wired that switch to a little hand switch right here. So I can take this, flick it up, on it goes, and off. It's quite simple. But simplicity can be deceiving. This thing is probably the tool I fear the most in here out of any tools, and the one I look forward to using the least, but it can give us an absolutely great result on our material. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to grab a seat slat that we have, and I'm gonna run that through this here, and I'll show you how it cuts, and I'll cut a few other pieces for you, show you some different ways to use it. And we're gonna talk about the hand router. So we're gonna got 2 routers we're gonna work with today, and I'll tell you why we use a hand router and why we use this one when I come back in a second. All right, so I got 2 pieces we're gonna be working with today. So one of the seat slats, so I've cut it to dimension and I've drilled it, but it needs to be routered. We want that nice soft edge that we sit on. So we're gonna router over the top edges, and we're gonna use this machine for that. So we're gonna get ourselves set up. We're gonna use a fingerboard right here. Set that in place. We're gonna set our piece in place, but I have to adjust my fingerboard to fit. This one isn't magnetic like the other one. So I physically have to adjust this board to make sure that it's gonna hold my material nicely against the backrest. Now what I'm also gonna do is have one of my push sticks at the ready. I'm gonna use this. What we're gonna do is we're gonna work over here a little bit. And so I got a push stick. That's going to be at the ready. I'm just going to set it right here. I've got my fingerboard. I've got this board here. Important thing is, when we're working with these, we want to round over the top edges, right? So what we need to do is we need to find our countersink tops, and we need to place those face down on the working surface right here. That way we're going to cut the top edge just like we want. So as you see this right now, it's square. There's a bit of a chip in the middle there, but not too big of a deal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this through the router here, the table router. I'm going to run both sides through, and then we're going to have a look at it. So I am going to turn the router on and the vacuum. I always run the two together. I just don't want that chips, that mess everywhere. As you can see, I've been running it earlier. I'm a little dusty, but such is life. That's the way it is in the shop sometimes. So I'm going to turn those both on. You may not be able to hear a lot, but I'll shut them both down, and we'll talk about this afterwards. So now that you can hear again, let's take a look at this board. So what it's done is this just put nice little rounded profiles on those edges. They're smooth, they're nice and easy, and this is going to be a lot nicer when you sit down on it. You don't have that hard edge poking you in the back of the thighs or your seat or anything like that. So that's what we want to do with this. This here, we're only doing straight cuts with. So if we're going to cut something like this K3 back slat, which we're going to do next, we're going to run this through there, and we're going to cut the straight sides, and it's going to leave us with this section at the top that needs to be routered. That's where the hand router comes into play. We're going to set that up on the table, and we're going to router these top edges with the hand router. So we're going to do the same setup here, except I'm going to use a second push stick instead of a fingerboard, because this is tapered, and as I slide this through, the thickness changes. Since it is a fixed fingerboard, it won't adjust for the thickness difference. So we're going to use two push sticks instead of a fingerboard. We're going to pop this one out of here. Got my second stick right here. I kind of set those where they're easily accessible, because I am going to start to feed this through by hand, and then I'm going to switch things up and grab my boards or push sticks. So I always want these nice and close. So we're going to turn this all on again, and then we will cut this piece. So nice and tight to the backboard. All right, folks, so one thing you may notice is we've got that shape, that profile we want. Fairly smooth all the whole way, except there is a little bump right here. It just rocked slightly, and it created a bit of a burn mark. These bits, they do spin quite fast, And we need to be moving our material constantly across that bit at, I would say, a high rate of speed, but a good steady rate of speed, because if we go slow, it's going to burn our wood, and that's not what we want. So I've got fairly decent cut up either side, but we need to do this top edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this camera around, point it down at the table, and we're going to set up the hand router, and we're going to talk about cutting the curve on the top. So we'll do that right now. Right there is where we're going to be working. Got things kind of set up. Table is an absolute mess today. I've been doing a lot of work, getting some parts, pieces put together for some of these chairs, and also creating some other little projects. So we're going to tidy up just a bit, because a clean workspace is a safe workspace. All right, so I like to work with this slightly off the edge of the table. So what I do is I take my piece, I position it just slightly off the edge of the table, and I grab a couple clamps. I'm going to clamp it here at the back and right here, and that's going to secure this piece, and it will not move, or should not anyways. So we got one there. Second clamp's right here. We're going to clamp this down. Now we're ready to start our routering. So when we are routering, since that bit does turn counterclockwise, we're going to move in a clockwise motion. That's going to allow us that nice cut, a nice controlled cut, and should take care of this edge pretty nicely. But firstly, let's talk about this guy. So this is a hand router. I'm going to adjust the camera just a bit so you guys can see a little better, because I'm not going to cut just yet. Almost. Good enough, good enough. So what I have here is a hand router. These come in various sizes. This one is, wow, 1 3/4 horsepower. So this one's actually pretty darn heavy duty in comparison to a lot of other ones. This guy here rotates at 24,500 RPM a minute. It has the same bit in the bottom of it. One thing with these, with that bit being exposed on the bottom like that, I never set these down on end. I never drop this on the table with that bit down. That could definitely damage it. We've got a bearing here, and these cutting edges, if they get damaged, your work's gonna look like garbage. So we don't want that. So I always set these down on their side, even upside down sometimes. But I always set it down after it's turned off, and I wait for it to stop rotating before I leave it. Just kind of like the bandsaw, you want to stop. You want to have that blade stopped before you leave the machine. Same thing with this. They rotate super fast. They do only rotate for a few seconds after you turn them off. But if someone was to reach across the table, get their hand somewhere near this, that would be just something I would not want to have happen in the shop. So I always make sure that I watch this until this is done rotating. This is a two-handed operation. It's got handles on either side. We're going to use this in this position. It has an on-off switch, which is located right here on the side. It's just a simple switch, a toggle, left, right, off, on. When using this, we want to keep this flat. That's what this whole sliding pad here is for. This is a big plastic pad. It's designed to slide nicely across your wood material, but it's also designed to keep this bit 90 degrees to your work. So we don't want to be here rocking it left, rocking it right. It's not going to give us good work. Or tipping one way or tipping the other. We want this to be flat. And these two hands allow us to work flat. If we're doing it one-handed, which we should never do, this thing could spin out of control, could tip. It's more likely to go left or right and not give you a very good end result. So we use two hands with these at all times, and I always move in a clockwise motion because you want to go against the rotation of the bit. That's how you're getting the good cut. So we're going to plug this in. We're going to adjust the camera, and then we are going to cut right here. So I don't need to cut a whole bunch because both these edges right up to this point are already done. So I just need to have it here, start, come around, and that should be good. But we need to set depth on this. So actually, I need to unplug this again. If we don't have our depth set correctly, it's going to leave us a bunch of extra ugly marks that we don't want. Now, I purposely took a piece earlier and cut it way too deep. So let's take a look at a good cut, which is going to be that nice 1/4 inch round, just like that. Things should be nice and happy. Here we got a bunch of nice cuts. That's all that 1/4 inch round until you flip it over. And where is it? There it is. You guys see that? See that deep cut right there? That is not what we want. So that 1/4 inch cutting bit has an edge on it. If we set it too deep, that edge is going to cut down into the material and not give us a nice result, because that, as you see it, it's burnt, it looks like garbage, and it's definitely not what we want. So we want to make sure that bit's set to the right height. This is kind of an eyeball thing. What we're going to do is loosen up this collar here. This is our retaining collar. So that's this one right here. This allows me to adjust the height now. And you want to go till the edge of this cutting bit is right level with the deck. Now, I say deck, I just mean this cutting surface or the sliding surface of this tool. And that right there looks pretty good to me. It's right where I want it. So I'm going to tighten this up. And that should be good. So what I'm going to do here is I'm pretty confident in how that is. So I'm just going to cut this piece for you. If it is slightly off, I'll show you. If it's good, I'll show you also. So we can take mistakes and turn them into teachable lessons and moments. That's why I don't mind making mistakes. In fact, I like making mistakes. They're better for learning. So what I've got here is two hands. I got it set here on the bottom side. I'm going to move to my left, around, and then back. Should be pretty good. So we're going to turn this on using this on-off switch here. So we're going to do that. So I've got that turned off. I just kind of keep it off the table, keep that bit away from anyone and everything. It's now stopped, so I'm going to set it down. So, slight burn mark. Other than that, not bad. So we're going to take a look at it. These bits, they do get dull over time, so you do get bits of burn marks. But you see that? You see it right there, a little burn mark? That's going to come off in about 30 seconds with some sanding. So this is all rounded up top, a little bit of a burn here. That's because we're going across the grain. When we're going with the grain, we're way less likely to get burns. When you're going across the grain, sometimes we get that. Yeah, there's a little bit of work I could do to make this a little nicer. So I'm going to have to sand this a bit. Not a big deal. Overall, I'm very happy with how that turned out. So as you guys can see and hear, that thing spins amazingly fast. The table or the hand router. They're tools that need to be respected. The big thing with these though is, make sure that bit isn't going to contact anybody. Never set it on the bit. Travel against the rotation of the bit. Don't travel with it. It may just eject that piece across the room. And that is going to be not very good for anybody who happens to get in that way. So that is a short and sweet little lesson for today, guys. What I am going to do, actually the quiz is already open for you guys. 5 questions, true, false. We'll get those taken care of. And then we'll head on with our day. But yeah, I'm going to shut down this video. I'm going to be here for about the next 15 minutes for you guys. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. Make sure your names are in the chat. I have 17 people in here. I should have 17 names in the chat. So let's make that happen, folks. And we're going to get on to assembly because got a bit of a sneak peek right down here, but things are coming together. So we got our seat leg D, front leg J, back support A. That's 1/2 of a side of the chair. So things are definitely coming together. We're going to be working on this in the next couple days, do some assembly, shoot some cool videos. Maybe talk about finishing these as well. Because raw wood's cool. Stained or painted wood is better. So we'll talk about a lesson in the new year, I think, when we come back for that week. We'll talk about the staining process, how to prepare the wood for staining. We'll go through some tips and tricks for assembly. I might assemble a chair with the class, and I'll shoot those videos too. So that'll be a fun time. I'm really looking forward to the next bit. It's going to happen fast. So try and keep up, and have yourselves a great day, folks. I'll be here for you if you need me. Just yell at me through the screen, and we'll get you sorted out. Thank you much, folks. Have yourselves a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow.